Hi, friends, and welcome to Season 3 of the School Librarian Learning Network podcast. I'm Steve Tatro, often known as Dr. T Loves Books, and I love talking about all things related to school libraries. I'm an old dog who's always trying to learn new tricks. That's why at each episode of the SLLN podcast, I'll chat with a school librarian about a lesson, program, or activity they love. Hopefully, this can be a place for school librarians to get ideas and find new ways to engage with their students and staff. Speaking of which, I'd love to hear about what you and your friends are doing in your school library. Email me at drtlovesbooks@gmail.com. That's drtlovesbooks@gmail.com to tell me about what you're doing, offer feedback about the SLLN podcast, or to request a podcast sticker. As Amy Herman likes to say, being a guest on a podcast is a great way to show your admins you are engaged in meaningful professional development and leadership in the profession. So drop me a line and let's chat. That being said, the opinions and ideas shared in this podcast by myself and my guests are our own and do not reflect those of our school districts. I just like to geek out about school libraries. So without further ado, let's get to this week's episode. Hey everybody, I'm back with another new friend and I'm excited, so I'm just going to dive right in. Kannan, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad you can be here. Why don't you take a second and tell folks who you are, where you're at, and what you do?
Sure. My name is Kannan Cangro. I live in Northern Virginia, about 20 minutes outside of Washington, D.C. I work in a very large school district. To give everyone an idea how large our school district is, we are the 9th largest in the country.
Wow.
We have about 250 school librarians.
Wow.
So very large. However, I am at an elementary school. We are kindergarten through 6th grade, which is unusual.
Yeah.
I did not go through a K through 6 elementary. We do not have pre-K, which is also unusual for our district. Most elementary schools do have preschool. We do not. We have about 560 students. Our school is what I would say is predominantly inclusion-based. And when I say that, I mean all of our students with disabilities, none of them are in a self-contained class.
Okay.
They are all either, they all push in to general education and whatever services they get for those who need it. Some of them get pill out, but most of them get push in. So predominant inclusion, I do not have self-contained classes. We are 560, I think I said that. And something unusual about our school is how elementary schools have specials on a rotation: PE, music, art, library. Our other special is a foreign language in the elementary schools, and our foreign language is Mandarin. So all our students, kindergarten through 6th grade, receive Mandarin instruction once a week from K through 6. So
that's very neat. Do you have Mandarin materials in the library?
We do. Not a ton. Most of them are bilingual because, believe it or not, our students are learning more conversational Mandarin than written Mandarin.
Gotcha.
They do learn some written, but not a ton of, I wouldn't say anything they could read would be very sophisticated. So it's like a lot of picture books and things like that.
Yeah, but still, I mean, that's amazing.
And people always wonder, like, do we have a large population of Mandarin-speaking students? And the answer is no. So we have a very tiny, I'm talking like maybe a handful of students who speak Mandarin as a native language or as a second language. So all of our students are being exposed to Mandarin for the first time.
That's awesome, though. I mean, what a great opportunity for them to get something that they might not otherwise get. So love it. Now, I have to admit, I cheated a little bit. I didn't cheat, but I'm a little bit behind in catching up on my School Librarians United podcast, and I literally just happened to listen to yours this morning. So it was purely coincidence that this happened, but I love that it did because I happen to know that you came into the library from the art world, from being an art teacher. Yes. And I am so curious, how did you get from the art classroom into the library? Like, what was that transition?
Okay, so I'll tell you my winding journey. So as you know, I am a unique kind of individual that I was an elementary art teacher at my school. So I have not changed schools. I can't ever speak about working in 2 libraries, but I can talk about 2 spaces. So I was an elementary art teacher. We had a PE teacher who I loved and I adored. And she and I were like really good friends, and she invited me over to her house. And she happened to share her home with her cousin, who was a school librarian. And I was only like a 1st or a 2nd year art teacher. And she said to her cousin, Kannan loves books. Like, she talks books all the time. She loves books. And I was like, oh my God, I love books. Like, let's talk books. I love a good book. Right. And so we would get together and the three of us would hang out. And at one point he said to me, you should be a school librarian. And I went, no. Like, I was like, I don't know how to do that. Like, I don't, to me, every school librarian I ever knew was an English teacher who became a school librarian or a classroom teacher who became a school librarian.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't even have like the background for this. And he's like, you don't need to. And so he told me about it and it just kind of like went to the back of my mind and I moved on. And then about my third or fourth year teaching, and I got close with my own school librarian after that conversation because I was like, my friend is a school librarian and he says you can do this, this, and this for me. And so she was like, yes, I can. I can help you with all those things. And as an art teacher, we are not told that I never thought the school library was for me as a specialist. I always thought it was for the core classroom teachers. I never thought like the art teacher could use the library. One, I didn't even know I could use it. And two, I didn't know she could collaborate with me. So that was kind of phenomenal. So
and that's kind of funny though, because as you're saying that, like, I'm just thinking there's so many opportunities with, if you've got a decent collection in your library, especially in the art section, like what a great collaboration that could be.
Yeah, and she had to help me like get to JSTOR to get images that I could use for my instruction.
Love that.
And she had given me, we had these Picturing America posters. Now I'm going back like 15 years. So she had these Picturing America posters. She's like, you can use these. And I was like, wow, okay, this is really great because to get like full-size replica of art, it's not easy to do in an elementary classroom. So that had gone kind of the back of my mind and we were kind of going on with my education and with me teaching. And then I told my husband at one point, I said, I don't know how long I can be an elementary librarian and an elementary art teacher. And he was like, why is that? And I said, when I look around in my district, you can imagine if we have 250 librarians, we also have a ton of art teachers.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, when I look around, I don't see a lot of older art teachers. Like, I do see older art teachers, but they're almost all secondary. I'm not seeing them on the elementary level. And he's like, why do you think that is? And I said, I think this subject is so prep heavy. It is so much prep for little kids.
Yeah.
I mean, we're cutting the paper. I mean, you're prepping a lot. It's lovely and it's amazing, but it's very prep heavy. It was also getting to a point where I couldn't bring work home. So we would have these optional work from home days and nobody would be in the building except me and like my administrators because I can't mix paint at home. I can't cut paper at home and I can't take home these like massive 18 by 24 paintings to grade, right? Because I'm grading. And also like grading was taking a long time. I was giving 5 grades per student, 560. I think at one point we'd even gotten to the 600s.
Wow.
Every quarter. And it was just a lot.
Yeah.
And so he was like, well, what could you do? And I was like, and I'll give a shout out to my friend, John Ray. John Ray told me that being a librarian seemed like something I should do. And he was like, okay. And it must have been like kismet. I got an email from John Ray about a month later that said, hey, they're looking for a cohort of librarians because our district does not have enough school librarians. The county is willing to pay for some of this, but you have to apply. So here's the info session. And I went to the info session, Steve, and it was standing room only. Wow. There were so many people in that room who wanted to be librarians. But also I think the guys of like the county's paying for some of it, right? To do an entire endorsement is not easy. Yeah. And then to pay for it. And it was standing room only. I remember sitting on the floor in the back of the room. And I went back to my husband. I was like, I don't think they're going to pick me. I'm like the third year art teacher. And he's like, just apply. Yeah. And I applied and they picked 20 of us. And I was one of the ones picked. So I went through the Longwood University program. Shout out to Longwood. And the way the Longwood University program works, which is amazing, the professors come to us. So we had this cohort of 20 students sitting in a warehouse. And now you might have all heard this story before because another person who was in my cohort was Maura Madigan. So Maura Madigan and I went to library school together.
Nice. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So we were in the same cohort, our first cohort of librarians that went to Longwood from our district. Now, what was different was most of the people who were in that cohort with me, they all went and became librarians. And I was like, but I really like my school. Like, I don't really want to leave. Our school had just gotten renovated. I finally had my own art room with like this amazing storage room and a kiln. And it was like an elementary art teacher's dream. And I was like, I don't know if I want to go yet. And my husband said, look, the universe is going to tell you when it's time. The universe will tell you when it's time. And it happened to be in a couple of years after that, our own school librarian, who was not the one I started with, it was a different one, she got a promotion and she left us to go to the district office. And I had told my principal, hey, I think this is the year. Like, I'm going to go look for a school librarian position. But if that position is ever open here, I want you to know you're my number one. Like, I want to work here. And so I did not think my librarian was going to leave like in March. And she left in March. And my principal said, so do you want to be the librarian? And I said, absolutely. Like, so when? In August? Like, let's be the librarian in August. And she's like, no, like in 2 weeks. So in March of 2018, with a 2-week notice and leaving sub plans for the art room, I literally just shifted into the library. And I have been there ever since. So yeah, it all worked out, but it was a weird path and a rolling path. And I've made
That's
it there.
awesome,
And yeah, and my background in art, I've realized is has really kind of ignited a lot of things for me as a librarian. I've become a STEAM endorsed educator in my district, just STEAM endorsed in my district, but I do a lot of STEAM learning in my library. And then I do a lot of other great things too, right? Yeah, but I've always been a specialist, and routines and procedures are like in my blood. And teaching a whole school has always only been what I know. So that part was a little bit easy.
That
the
all
rest
lines up
is
nicely.
still a learning curve, y'all. Don't think it's still a learning curve.
Well, I'm going to say, for those of you that are looking for any kind of STEAM stuff, you absolutely need to check out Kannan's episode on School Librarians United, because she shared a whole bunch of awesome STEAM stuff there. So don't miss it. Make sure you check it out.
Sure.
But we're not going to talk STEAM today. Instead, we're going to talk about book fairs. So this is really interesting to me, because let me back up a step and say, we had a school library for a while. We lost it. But when we had it, our previous school librarian would have the Scholastic Book Fair every year. And I'd bring my students, and there'd always be a couple of kids who were like, well, I kind of want to look at that, but I can't really afford it. And like, it always just left me feeling a little, leaves me feeling a little squeaky, right? So I was kind of like, So when I became the school librarian, people are asking me, when are we going to have a Scholastic Book Fair? And I'm like, I don't think we're going to do that. Like, we're going to figure something else out, but that's not what it's going to be. So I have heard people talk about true book fairs before. And so I'm so glad that you are here to talk about your true book fair, because I think this is such an important thing. And I'm just looking forward to hearing kind of how you made this come about.
So I'll give you my own history with book fairs. So I was the kid who my mom, so my two favorite times of the year was the Scholastic Book Fair and those Scholastic flyers that your classroom teacher gave you. Not because I could afford anything in it. My mom would, whatever the 99-cent deal book was, she'd be like, you can buy that one, right? And she would give me like $2 to the book fair, which back in like the 80s and 90s, I didn't even buy much then. But, so be it. That's what it was. But the book fair was like a way for me to look at the books that were coming. And then I could go to the public library and look for them, right? So I would go there, and that wish list wasn't my wish list on what to buy. It was my wish list on what to read. And I would go to the public library and get those out. Because that was the other thing was I'm a child of immigrants. My parents both immigrated to the United States in the 70s. And the library was the one place they never said no to me. You can get whatever you want. You can, take out what you want. You have to return it. The amount of book fines I've probably paid, the public library in my hometown growing up, they could have bought probably like 25 books. So, but anyway,
that was probably $25 worth of book fines on 4,000 books. Like,
I'm sure. And now they don't charge book fines at that public library anymore. So I'm like,
which is good.
The tides have turned.
Yes.
So when I became a librarian, and I actually became the librarian right after the book fair. So at least I dodged that bullet my first 3 months or whatever. But we were with Scholastic, and the thing about Scholastic is they send a lot of stuff. They don't send a lot of books. And I found as I went on with it from year to year, it was just a lot of just stuff. Like tchotchkes and pencils and pens. And so already like I had an issue with that. Then I had an issue. I knew there were kids who couldn't buy things. So I was like kind of talking to our school counselor, and I was talking to my principal, and I was talking to teachers. I was like, I want to make sure every kid gets a book at the book fair. So if you see a student didn't buy a book at the book fair, please let me know. Let them come see me and they're going to buy a book. And we would do it that way. But it still didn't feel like equitable or fair or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. And I don't love hosting a book fair, I'll be very honest, but I think my community would absolutely revolt if I didn't do it. I think there's a lot of parents. I mean, I've seen the meme, right? Forever chasing the high of the Scholastic Book Fair. So a lot of us have great memories. A lot of people have great memories of a book fair. I say all the time, I wish there was like an adult book fair, like, and it's not Barnes and Noble. It has to be different, right? Like Barnes and Noble's not quite it. Like I need it to be like a pop-up and there's books and
it's got to be all new books, like the stuff that you didn't know was coming out. Or like
so I will say my district, this is like such a side tangent, but I'll be quick. Our district does this thing called book preview because we have such a huge amount of librarians. They do a thing called book preview. They do one in the fall. They do one in the spring. And they take one of our buildings and our vendor, who is Mackin, shout out to Mackin.
Mackin.
Bring all the books that are new that might appeal to our libraries and our collections. And they put them all on display. And librarians get to go on a teacher work day. If it's optional, you do not have to go. But you can go on a teacher work day and go look at the books. And they're all books that Mackin's going to hate me because when I told Mackin that we love this, they go, don't tell other districts because they're going to ask for it.
I literally was just making myself a note.
I'm so sorry to our sales rep, Bob and Todd. Sorry, Bob and Todd. But they do this. And I think that's the closest thing that our school librarians have to a school book fair because they're all books that have been published in the 6 months since we had seen them. They have graphic novels and they have picture books. And I will not put it past our own library district. They put in a ton of work too to like set the whole thing up for us and do. But
well, and to be fair, 250 librarians. I mean, that's a huge. That's like.
And we all have like budgets and deadlines that we have to fill. And, you know, our district has collection development policies. I know that's not the case countrywide, but our district says every book we have in our collection has to have 2 positive reviews from professional journals. And if they don't have the 2 positive reviews, we have to read it in full as a librarian. You have to read that library book in full before you put it in your collection. And who's got time to read all those? Like I wish that's all we did, right? Wouldn't that be great? But
reading hundreds of books, that's, you know, if you want to pay me to do that, I will happily do it. But
that's what other people think we do, though. That is what other people think we do.
Yes, well, that's true.
But so anyway, going back to the book fair. So I was sitting at a district meeting. Because we have so many librarians, we have some in-service meetings with librarians, which is lovely. You get to kind of meet with your people a couple times a year. And I was sitting next to my colleague, Maura Madigan. And she was like going on Donors Choose. And then she was going to Amazon. I was like, Maura, what are you doing? And she says, I'm going to do this thing called a true book fair. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. And so, you know, in between like sessions of listening to people talk, she's telling me about this true book fair. And she told me that she got the idea from School Library Journal, Librarian of the Year, Julie Stivers, who came up with this model. And, you know, I guess she read about it in School Library Journal. And she was going to do this. And I was like, okay, great. That sounds good. And I just kind of sat with it. And I went back to my school and I was like, I don't have the time to sit there on Donors Choose and write to publishers. Like, kudos to you, Maura, but I do not.
Yeah.
However, I was like, but I have a PTA that earns a lot of money. They raise a lot of money. I'm at a school of like haves and have-nots. So we have a huge population that, you know, I would say is solidly middle. And then we have like the lower. And so the other thing we have, which I didn't mention at the very beginning, Steve, is we are what we call a Purple Star school. And my district is going to start doing Purple Star district. They're trying to be that, but it's a very Virginia distinction, Purple Star. And it means we support military families.
Oh, okay.
And so we have a subsection of our district and my school where it's very transient because we have military families coming in and out.
I gotcha.
So I think about that a lot. Like I have kids that come for 1 year, 2 years, and then they leave, right? And their parents work at the Pentagon or they work at Fort Belvoir or they work at Andrews Base, whatever it is. sometimes they come back after a few years, sometimes they don't.
Mm-hmm.
But so some of them have been abroad, like they've been in Japan and they've never seen a book fair. So things like that. And I thought a lot of them, that June is the last time I see them. They're not going to the public library. As much as I would love that those military families go to the public library and get books over the summer,
Mm-hmm.
they're probably like packing it up and shipping it out
Yeah.
and leaving. And on the same token, I realized in elementary school, my children don't control whether or not they go to the public library. That's not
Mm-hmm.
up to them.
Yeah,
It's up to the
absolutely.
grown-ups in their home.
Yeah.
So especially our lower economic students who I know whose parents work multiple jobs and
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to the public library. So how are they getting their summer reading in? My library's closed over
Mm-hmm.
the summer. I know some librarians, they'll let them check out at the end of the year and all that. But they thought, wow, this true book fair model could be really nice as a summer
Yeah,
reading.
absolutely.
So I put it in as a budget request to our PTA. That's how we do it. We have to put in a budget request.
Okay.
And they said no to me. The first time they said no. And then my admin, who's tremendous, she's like, they seem to want to do things where lots of staff members are asking for something and it supports a lot of students.
Okay.
So I went to every specialist in the building. I went to the reading specialist. I went to our multilingual teacher. I went to our gifted teacher. I went to like the school counselor. I went to our tech specialist. And I was like, hey, I'm writing this budget request. Would you sign off on it? And they're like, well, tell me about it. So now I'm telling them all about the True Book Fair. And they're like, well, that sounds great. Sure. Yeah, write my name. I was like, you don't have to do anything. Just let me use your name as someone that you're supporting this.
Mm-hmm.
And so the second time they said no in the fall, but they said if we raise enough money, yes, in the spring.
Okay.
So in the spring, it happened. They said yes, but the problem was I didn't have the whole school year to buy the books.
Mm.
So they said yes, I think in like March, and I was trying to do this by June.
Right.
And I ended up short. I ended up short books. And at the first time, I wasn't even like, 2 books. I said 1 book. Every kid can leave with 1 book.
Mm-hmm.
And my administrator, and I went to my admin, I was like, I don't think I have enough books. The other thing that I really loved about the True Book Fair model is it's so much like the Scholastic Book Fair model is you get all brand new books.
Mm-hmm.
They are brand new books for you to own, to add to your library, and you get to keep them. They're not used books. You don't have to trade a book. They're yours to keep.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to my principal and she's like, how much short are you? And it wasn't a lot. It was only a few hundred. And she's like, I'll give it to you. Just make it happen. And I made it happen and it was tremendous. It was very successful.
Oh,
Every
I bet.
parent saw a kid coming with the book.
Mm-hmm.
So then the next year they said yes. And I did it again. And then last year, I noticed that the PTA, when they were fundraising, used the True Book Fair as a reason to fundraise. They
Okay.
said, support your school. It will fund things like True Book Fair. And
Love
so
it.
now this has become kind of a pillar they stand on.
Yeah.
But all they're doing is giving me the money. Like
Mm-hmm.
I am doing all the footwork. Not myself, I will say. It's me and our finance secretary, and even my principal. Like the 3 of us are, as I say, no one hustles like we hustle. Like my finance secretary and me, we're always hustling. And so for me and my school, my predominant vendor has been First Book.
Okay.
We qualify for First Book because we are a military supporting school.
Okay.
If you are a Title I school, you can use First Book. If you are not, and my colleague Mara was not at the time, you can do things like Donors Choose, success writing publishers.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard some success some people have with independent bookstores or write into
Yeah.
bookstores and say, if you have books, if you wouldn't mind.
I'll say this too. We're doing a 1 read this year, and our local teacher association kicked in a really nice, they basically gave us a grant to buy books for all the kids. So that instead of buying the book and then getting it back when we're done and we use it again in a couple of years, every kid gets to keep this book.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
so
it's really great.
yeah. And it was, our local gave it to us, but they're getting money from our state teacher organization. So like, it's absolutely worth looking at your teacher organizations too, because they make money that they're willing to give you for this kind of stuff.
And there's a lot of grants out there for literacy. I know Dollar General has one that people have used for True Book Fair.
Absolutely.
I was in an honors site in graduate school and they have a literacy grant. So there are grants out there also to fund this and you can do it that way.
So
But the
once you
other thing
secured the funds, that's like step
yeah.
one, but like,
Yes. And now also, I want to give an idea of how much money, right? The first time I asked for 2,000, the second time 3,000. I think we're at 2,500 now. That seems to be the sweet spot of
okay.
2,500. And for 2,500, every student leaves with 2 books
Wow.
and
That's
we have
amazing.
leftovers. So now you're doing the math, right? 560, 2,500. That's only about $250 a book. I mean, no, $2.50 a book.
Yeah.
Okay, we all know how much books cost. Can we
Yeah.
spend $2.50 a book? No. So First Book has another section. Well, they do have books about $2.50, but they have another section called the Book Bank. And in the Book Bank, publishers donate cartons of books.
Oh.
And so you can get like 36 books for $25 or 36 books for $36. Until just now, I mean, literally this happened yesterday, I think I got the email from First Book. They would send out a text when they had a book bank drop. And I would literally between classes run into my finance secretary's office and go, how much money do we have? They just dropped books. And then we would order. The other thing that First Book does, if you are a First Book member, and I'm so sorry if you're not, but if you aren't, just try. Like look at the application and see if you can try to do it. The other thing First Book does is they drop periodical codes for $50 off, $25 off, things like that. But they're not available to everybody. And please, First Book, do not listen to this podcast because there is a Facebook group called Teachers on First Book. And if they get a code, they put it in the Facebook group. And codes are first come, first served. So everyone is trying to get the codes. And a couple times a year, they drop one that's like 150 off 300. And so each account can use the coupon. So I use it and my finance secretary uses it. And so we get $600 worth of books for $300. Nice. And this is the way we're kind of manipulating this.
Gotcha. Okay.
However,
I love it. The hustle. I love the hustle.
I mean, it really is the hustle. It really is the hustle. And when I say that no one hustles for my kids the way I hustle for my kids, I mean, really, and this isn't the only place I hustle. Like you talked about School Librarians United with Amy. I talked in our last episode, Finding the Light, how I hustle to get author visits. I'm always hustling because in terms of money, as Gru says in Despicable Me, I have no money. Like in terms of money, I have no money. So that's the other thing is like, I'm always hustling. And so we take that money. And so I sit there with my finance secretary in front of either her computer or my computer, and I buy every single book or carton of books. And I buy ones that I believe are worth reading, right? So I'm not buying like garbage because sometimes I'm not saying garbage, but sometimes they drop activity books, right? And activity books aren't summer reading. If you are a First Book member, they also drop Legos. So they have a partnership with the Lego recycling program. And so I've never been able to acquire enough to give away, but I have enough for my library. But they have Legos in there for like $5 a box of assorted Legos. They had Play-Doh in there for a while. They have all sorts of things in the book bank, all sorts of school supplies and things. So First Book, definitely a great organization, amazing place to be. But yeah, so we buy the books. And then the other thing you don't realize, we have to store these books. We have to find a place in our building. In our case, it's multiple places. So in the back corner of my library, I have boxes of books. There are some in the math closet. There's some in the boiler room with the science kits. They are everywhere. There are just boxes of books everywhere.
Yeah, trying to store 1,000 books for most of the school year.
And also, we have to keep a pretty detailed spreadsheet of the titles we bought, how many we have, and what grade levels it's for. Because it's K through 6.
Right.
So I have to make sure we have picture books and early readers, and I need to make sure I have chapter books and middle grade readers and graphics for my other kids. Like and then I have my nonfiction readers, right? And we have our kids who like info and some. And I don't please them all. I'll be very honest. Every year there's some kid who complains to me and it's like, I don't like any of these books. And I go, sorry, we did our best.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that was going to be one of my questions was if it was, so it sounds like it's, you're kind of looking at what's there and kind of picking from what's available, the items that you feel like are going to best hit your population. And I
Yes.
wasn't sure if it was like students get to like place an order and then you're trying to fill their order. No, this is more of a, okay. No, that's great.
Just like a regular book fair, you get the books and you put them out, right? So what's very good about First Book, they have great diverse titles. They have great new titles. They also have like another marketplace just to buy books. And I have bought books from the marketplace. So like the new Diary of a Wimpy Kid, I will buy like 35 copies of that. They do not last, right? But we hope and pray that they will. And then if you do this enough times, you will have books left over. You can't just order 560 times 2 or 800 times 2.
Right.
You have to order like almost 800 times 2.5 or 560 times 2.5 because it shouldn't feel like the last class coming in gets the dredges.
Right.
You want them to feel like, even though they still feel that a little bit, but I try really hard to make sure it doesn't feel that way. They still have a good variety and a good amount.
Yeah.
So then those books that are left over, and this time, like we had a whole bunch of early readers left over. So all of my new kindergartners that came in this year at open house, we gave them all 2 free books.
Oh, nice.
So we had a note that said, hey, this is a gift from your library and the PTA. Welcome to our school. Here's 2 books for your home library.
That's wonderful.
And what a way to like welcome a student.
Yeah.
And then I have a few in my office too that I just had a student come in from Kenya. She just joined us and they did a tour of the school in December. And I said, oh, wait, hold on a second. I have something for you. And I went and I gave her 2 books. And I said, these are for you to keep. These are from our library and our PTA. They are for your home library. And that parent was like, oh my God, thank you so much. Our boxes haven't even come from Kenya yet. So at least she's got these books to get her started.
Oh,
and I was like,
nice.
wonderful, great. And then she had her son with her who was like 4. And I was like, oh, wait, let me give you 2 more. Here's 2 more, right? Like, so that's fine. So, and then I will put out the leftovers again this year. I'll put them back out. We'll do that. And so that's kind of how I do it. When I set up True Book Fair, it is just like regular book fair. I get parent volunteers to come in. I put tablecloths on all the tables. I buy balloons. I get signs I have to make the signs, but I get signs to label the tables just like you would for a True Book Fair, right? The only thing is we're using every table in the library because I'm not getting those amazing carts from any sort of vendor. But
so, and you're doing this at the end of the year, right? Because you're doing it for summer reading.
I do it either the last week or the week before the last week.
So
whatever that works out.
Since it is the end of the year, I would imagine it's probably not too much of an imposition on your space because you're probably like at that point, you're kind of closed.
Circulation at that point, my circulation has stopped. I'm not closed, right? Okay. But circulation has stopped. I do have a fixed flex schedule, mostly fixed. I'll be very honest. At K through 4 fixed. They come half an hour every week. 5 through 6 comes on a checkout schedule. So I try to pick a day where I don't have a ton of classes, maybe just 1 or 2 fixed, because the flex, the checkout only will not come because Circa is done. So, and my thing is I try to keep the kids out of the stacks towards the end of the year as much as I can. So if I can push into the classroom, I push into the classroom the last few weeks of school.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because I don't know about all of you. My library is a mess before the summer. Like I'm doing inventory. I'm weeding. This is the time I've decided I'm going to move a whole section, right?
Right.
And since Circ is done, I'm not worried about kids coming messing up my stuff. And I'll just start moving things. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, if students come in here, it's tempting, right? All year long, you get to just pick out your books. And all of a sudden for a couple weeks, I'm going, stop, don't touch it. Like, please leave it alone. Which it kind of breaks my heart. But the way it doesn't break my heart anymore is I always tell them, hey, True Book Fair's coming. You're going to get 2 books. And they come in September asking about it. They're like, Mrs. Cangro, when's the free, they call it the free book fair. When's the free book fair? And I was like, June. So the other thing we've now linked with the True Book Fair is our summer reading. We always do like a little bit of a summer reading program. The participation is kind of mediocre, but we try. I also have a relationship with our public library. They come and talk about the public library summer program. We come up with something for us and I tell them they can double dip. I was like, it's the same books. Just put them in both places. Do it. Yeah. And so my reading specialist and I realized we just don't have a lot of buy-in. And we realized because maybe kids are not going to the public library or so on. So we made our summer reading, hey, write 2 reviews about the books you got from True Book Fair.
Absolutely.
That's the participation. Like,
Love
bring
it.
that back.
Yeah.
And we got a lot because they all left with 2 books.
Yeah.
And then this year, what I'm adding to it is I think I'm going to do a bookmark contest. I actually know I'm going to do a bookmark contest. So we'll probably also reproduce some student-produced bookmarks at True Book Fair. So you get a bookmark, you get your summer reading, you get your 2 books.
That's awesome.
The public library has already come and talked about their summer reading. So you already know what's going on. And, we're good to go. And it's been really great. It's so rewarding. I still do a paid book fair. I do it in the fall. I've moved away from Scholastic, which a lot of librarians I know are. We actually have a Virginia book fair called Bookworm Central. They do book fairs in Virginia.
Okay.
They're local. They're locally owned. And it's not as much stuff, but it's been very lovely. And it's worked out. It's all worked out. I don't get the profits I used to from Scholastic. Scholastic gave me more money. But in the end, I know that we pride ourselves on giving our students valuable things to read, right? We're not giving them the things our parents read.
Right.
So this is a way that I know that happens. I know it happens with True Book Fair. I know it happens with my paid book fair. And that's how we've done it. And it's been very successful. Like, to a point, I said our PTA still says, hey, we're donate some money, support the True Book Fair.
Yeah.
And it's also great advocacy for your library.
Oh, yeah,
you're
absolutely.
inviting all the parents back, right? You're asking for the money. And then you're also saying, hey, we need help to set up for this book fair that you helped to pay for.
Absolutely.
And they love it. They absolutely love it. I take pictures. I send it to them to put on their webpage, to put on their newsletter, and so on and so forth. And what an equitable thing to do for students.
Yes.
And for those of you who have not read Julie Stivers, it's called True Book Fair because it's truly fair. It's truly fair because every student leaves with books.
Yeah.
And it's lovely because there's no cash registers. So there's none of that financial literacy of the kid who brought a whole bunch of change from the couch. It's really quite great. And I love it. And it's a lot of work. Do not think it's not.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's so rewarding. And I think to myself, little Kannan would have loved this.
Yes.
And my sister tells me that all the time. I have a sister, and she's like, I wish I had you as my school librarian. And I was like, okay, but you're 35 years old. And she's like, but I still wish I had a school librarian like you. So, yeah.
But I mean, like you're saying, what a great piece of advocacy that you are putting, not just that you are putting the program together, but that you are putting literacy literally into the community. Like, you are sending the kids home with literacy. Like, even English teachers don't get to do that, unfortunately, So that's such a wonderful and powerful thing that you're doing for these students.
And
really love
the
it.
other thing is that sometimes I'll buy books for the True Book Fair. They're like books that my kids and I not take off the shelf to borrow, because I'm sure everybody's library, graphic novels is the most popular place, right? But when you're there and you get to take the book home and you get to keep it for 2 months, I'm having students take books they wouldn't normally maybe check out and read. I've also had students tell me, the kids in the neighborhood, they've traded books over the summer.
Oh, love
They're
it.
like, oh, we traded books from True Book Fair. I took 2 and you took, and we traded. And we have and then there's other friends who are we got the same book and we're going to do a book club over the summer.
Nice.
And so all my students are doing this. And I did do a survey after the first year. I did a survey of my students and I said, how many of you remember the True Book Fair? So at that point, it'd be 1st through 5th. It would be 1st through 6th because the kindergartners, now 1st graders, the 5th graders, 6th graders. And about 80% remembered it, right? And of the 80% that remembered, 95% of them told me they read the book. I said, did you read the book cover to cover? Not you looked at, they said, yeah, I read the book cover to cover. And some of them told me now I'll warn you, if you do a True Book Fair, you're going to start getting some of those books back in the fall in the library. And I was like, where are all these books coming from? Wait, these are all True Book Fair titles. And I think some of it's just kids. I always get books that don't belong to me in the library. And some of them come back to me. So it's not a lot. It might be 15 to 20, but yeah.
But that's absolutely going to happen. Yeah. I get
it's
books.
Been really lovely.
We don't even do a True Book Fair, and I get books returned to me that don't have any kind of library stickers or anything on. They're like, oh, is this for the library? I'm like, no, but okay, we'll figure it
Yeah.
out.
And then we also get books with no stickers on them, and you look inside and it is your library book. And you're like, where'd all the stickers go?
I am amazed at how much they will peel off a book, but that's a whole other topic of
Yeah, that's
conversation. Boy. But I love that the kids were self-organizing into book trades and
Yes.
into book clubs. And like,
Mhm.
what a great way to sort of add an extra element as you're talking to the kids about it. Like, hey, you're getting to take 2 books, but maybe you talk to some friends and you set up a book club, or
Yeah.
you trade so that, get different books and you get to all
Mhm.
read the same. Such a
And then
great
there's
additional
other
element.
kids who told me that they decided they were all going to put their books in the little free library in their neighborhood on one
Oh,
day.
nice.
And then they decided so that everybody's going to put it in the morning, and then in the afternoon they were all going to go back and pick them. And I was like, why did you do that? Like, why didn't you just trade? But they're kids, right? So
I
they
mean,
do
what a
what they
great way
do.
to participate in
Yes.
a little free library,
And the
and
other
especially
thing
for
is,
kids who don't have necessarily the resources to be able to take part in a little free
yes.
library otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
Love
Yeah.
it.
And then if you're buying books for something like this, I try to buy the first of a series. I don't ever buy the middle books.
Yes.
And there's
Yes.
a lot of those middle books in first book. The other thing I was going to say is I have thought about this beyond, like, if I didn't have first book, what would I do? Because
Mhm.
I've talked to other colleagues and they're like, well, I don't do first book. So here's some things I've thought of. Now, I don't know how many of them would work, but like I said, my friend Mara, she does Donors Choose. She wrote to publishers. Also, those Scholastic flyers that classroom teachers have, they have deals all the time,
Oh,
right? They
yeah.
have like $1 books and $2 books, and there's usually like one every month, and every grade level has different ones. Every grade level has different flyers. So I've actually started asking my classroom teachers for them. Like, hey, if you have an extra 1 or 2 every month, can you just throw them in my box?
Yeah.
And sometimes I'd buy books for the library that way. Cause I was like, oh my gosh, dollar easy readers. Let's go. But you could just buy like 25 of those dollar easy readers.
Mhm.
And if you did it over the year, 1 per grade level, right? Because the easy reader in the kindergarten flyer is not the same as the second grade flyer, which is not the same as the other
Right.
one.
Right.
It would be less selection, but you might be able to do it with that, with dollar. There's
Mhm.
also other places like thrift books and things like that where you can buy books in bulk. So there
Mhm.
are places and ways to do it. I want
Right.
everyone to know that if you don't have access to first book, there is a different way to do it, but this is just the way I do it.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
I imagine too, since you're doing the selecting, that you're able to cover quite a range of ability levels. And
Mhm.
I mean, do you also do, it sounds like some of your students are ELL, English language
Yeah, we
learners.
also have bilingual. I have a huge population of Spanish speakers and dual
Okay.
language Spanish. So we do have Spanish books. I don't have
Okay.
Mandarin books, but we do have Spanish books. First book has Spanish books. We have a Spanish book collection, and part of the reason we do the Spanish books, a lot of my students don't actually read in Spanish, but their families do.
Ah,
And so to get the read aloud at home, a lot of my students, they say they check out those books so they can read at home with their family.
love
And
that.
so that's another reason we'll put in the Spanish books. Last year, one of the big hot commodities at our True Book Fair was Con Pollo by Jimmy Fallon and Jennifer Lopez, which if you haven't read,
Huh.
it is a bilingual book about a little chicken named Pollo. It's a picture book, Con Pollo, and it was like a hot commodity. Sometimes I don't actually have the book in my collection yet when it's at the True Book Fair. And then I'll like, if it's left over, I'll keep it for the
Mhm.
collection, or it'll be on order for the summer. But
Yeah.
I will do that. So yeah, and some books, if after 2 years they haven't moved, they're not going to move anymore. So
Right.
we just donate them, or
Mhm.
this is the year where I've had to donate. I have about 5 copies left of Percy Jackson's Daughter of the Deep that haven't moved in 2 years. So I think those will be donated. And I donate them just to classroom teachers. Like, hey, do you want this for your classroom library?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Or
And I
other
mean,
librarians.
if after this long you've got 5 copies left, I mean, that really speaks
Yeah.
to how well you kind of made it all work.
Yeah,
Because
most of them go. I will tell
yeah.
you, graphic novels gone. Like
Oh, yeah.
they go.
Yeah.
Any popular series will go, any subjects, but most of them will go. First Book also does things where they have like free books you can buy just for the price of shipping.
Hmm.
This year they
Okay.
had like you could get 10 copies of Jabari Jumps. Great.
Hmm.
Last year they had Richard Scarry's Things That Go. I guess it was like the anniversary.
Oh,
They
yeah.
were hardcover books that
Hmm.
I got like 10 of them for $2 or something.
Wow.
And I didn't think my kids would like Richard Scarry because that's not in our collection. They flew. They were like, it's a pickle car. Off they go. Right. So, you
That's
maybe,
funny. I
but
remember the pickle car.
yes, but I
From
will
when I was a kid.
say, when I buy knowing the circ stats of my own library.
Right.
I'm buying books that move regularly, right?
Right.
So if they're not books that are being checked out of my library, I would not buy them to give away.
Mm-hmm.
So that's,
No, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
I'm also kind of curious. You said that you've got a pretty good special education population.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever like work with the teachers of the special ed students to kind of get some ideas of the types of stuff? Or since they're coming anyway, you've already got an idea of the kind of stuff that they're...
I pretty much have an idea.
Yeah.
I will say I found out it's been a few years now, but one of our big needs was we have a lot of students with dyslexia, and they have writing processing. And our other places, we have our multilingual learners who do very well with read alouds. So this is not with True Book Fair, but I've written grants to get playaways and wonder books in our library.
Okay.
And I did that. And for the playaways, if you're a librarian who's thinking of getting playaways, by the way, one time playaways showed up on First Book and I bought a bunch of them because they were cheaper than usual. Not very cheap, but I pair the playaway with the novel. So it goes as a pair so they can listen to the book. If you don't know what a playaway is, it's a standalone audiobook player. It only plays that book. It runs on a AAA battery. All the student needs is a headphone. They just put in a headphone jack and they listen. But I pair it with the book because predominantly they're chapter books.
Gotcha.
And they can listen and read at the same time.
That's
For
great.
wonder books, the player is in the cover. They're predominantly picture books. And you hit play and it reads aloud. They're available to everybody. They're targeted I bought them for the collection to target those students, but any student can check them out.
Okay.
They're open to them. But those are like way expensive to put in a True Book Fair. But yeah, I mean, I kind of know the subjects. I do buy some. I don't anymore because he's not in our school anymore. I do buy some books in large print. We had a student who was very visually impaired, and I had books in the collection, and then he had different tools, but I would buy some for the True Book Fair in large print, and they were available to anybody. And he didn't always take them, but they were there. If I can find them, I buy them. But our students, because we don't have, I would say if I still had pre-K at my school, we never had it. I'd probably buy more board books. I don't really buy a lot of board books.
Gotcha.
I'd buy more board books and those things. I'd probably, if we had like self-contained autism or Cat B, like students who are just very rough with things, I'd probably buy those. I think they're called, my daughter had these when she was a kid. You can't like rip them or anything. These books, I think they're called the Indestructibles or something.
Okay.
But they're very simple. If I can find it, Steve, I'll send it to you. You can put it in show notes.
Yeah.
But they're, you can't tear them. They don't really get wet. And they're very like lower level. They're not for upper level. So,
okay.
But that would be good if you like had a preschool autism population, which my daughter's preschool has.
Gotcha.
So that's something that would probably be very good. That I would buy. Yeah.
Love it, man. Well, this is amazing, and I just am so happy for your students, and I
hope they are.
Well, and I think I know that your parent teacher organization clearly values this after maybe not quite seeing the value at first. They have clearly come around on that, which is amazing.
And, you know, if you've come this far with us on this podcast journey, I would say like one piece of advice for librarians who are looking for advocacy with their parent teacher, show up to the meetings. I show up every time. Every single time I show up. Sometimes I don't say anything. I just sit there and I go home, right? But when you show up and you're always there, and then you volunteer at some things or whatever, you're there visually in their brain. When you put in that budget request or you ask for something, they're like, yes. Yeah, sure. Of course we'll do that for you.
Oh, and that person that always shows up for us.
Yes.
Let's now show up for them.
Our PTA meetings is only really attended by me, the board, some parents, our principal, and our finance secretary. There's no other teachers showing up, which is a total bummer. However, yes, just show up. I mean, sometimes 90% is just showing up and being there, and they know who you are. Yeah.
Love it. Great tip. Well, we have talked a bunch about books, but now we're going to talk about specific books because we're going to take our 90-degree turn and go into our book break.
Book break. Squiddy.
I brought a nonfiction adult book.
Okay.
Nonfiction adult. I know I've heard a lot of fiction on your podcast. So this is actually a book written by another podcast host.
Ooh,
So,
okay.
the book is called You Didn't Hear This From Me.
Okay.
And it's by Kelsey McKinney, mostly true notes on gossip. So Kelsey McKinney is the former host of a podcast called Normal Gossip. And the way I would describe normal gossip is it's like you go to a party and you hear, like if I met you at a party, Steve, and you told me a story about your cousin's wedding, a cousin I never met, I will never meet, but you'll tell me this crazy thing that happened at the wedding. And it comes back to you and you're like, that was a really crazy story, right? And it was gossip, but it's people you'll never meet. So that's what normal gossip is people send in stories that happened to them or they heard about. And she has a remarkable way of cutting this into a podcast episode that's totally engaging. And if you are going to go listen to normal gossip, highly recommend it as a shelving podcast. I listen to it a lot when I'm shelving. I am a podcast listener. When I shelve, I either podcast or audiobook. If I'm being professional, I do the School Librarian podcast. But if I'm being like frivolous, I do the Kelsey McKinney podcast. I would recommend 2 episodes. The first one is like feline fan fiction. And that episode is actually about warriors. You know, the Warrior Cat series?
Oh, yeah.
About the magic cats. It's about warrior cats fan fiction. And so I thought if anything, school librarians could maybe like have that little thing in common. And then the other one is called MFAs and Other Mistakes. And that is about an author visit to a university that really goes weird. And it's about like, you know, kids going for their MFAs and authors and pets that should not be brought places. And yeah, it's a little crazy. But anyway, so those are 2 podcasts. But this book, it's called You Didn't Hear This From Me by Kelsey McKinney, which already the title is like, of course I heard this from you. You wrote the book. It's kind of the history of gossip. And it talks about how when you call someone a gossip, it's kind of this very negative connotation, right? Oh, she's a gossip. But yet, as a society, I will warn international readers, this is a very American book.
Okay.
It's a very American book. It references like the Real Housewives, Gossip Girl, pop culture, Britney Spears. It references all of that. However, that being said, when you call someone a gossip, it's usually very negative connotation. But it goes to the history of gossip. And in fact, it even talks about gossip being a proactive thing. So when you're warning someone about a situation or a person or a place, and it talks about kind of the Green Book, right? The Green Book is kind of gossip because you're telling people safe places to go as an African American driving through the country, right? And it also talks about a church prayer group, right? When you have a church prayer chain and you're calling people and you're saying, hey, did you hear what happened to Kannan? You know, let's pray for her. But it is gossip. You're gossiping about Kannan.
That's true.
Right? As you pray. And so, and it also talks about kind of our pop culture, just infatuation with gossip and how we somehow feel entitled to know things about famous people when they're just people, right? So super engaging. The audiobook version, actually, she reads the audiobook version and she's very dynamic. So if you could do the audiobook version, but if not, and you just want to read the book, it's great. It's called You Can Hear This From Me by Kelsey McKinney. And I highly recommend it. Yeah.
That sounds awesome. Boy.
Yeah.
And I love that you have pointed out that there's maybe some good to come out of gossiping and, you know, makes me feel a little bit better when I am gossiping.
Yeah. And this was, this podcast was recommended to me by like 2 of my great librarian friends. They know who they are. I love them both. And we literally would like text each other and be like, did you listen to this episode? This is crazy. And in fact, before I came on your show, Steve, I texted them and I said, if you were going to suggest a podcast episode to a bunch of school librarians, which one would you do? And they picked the MFAs and Other Mistakes, and I picked the felines and fan fiction.
Love it.
Yeah.
Man, well, there you go. You got your community going on. You got your, just pulling it all together. You know, we're sharing, we're bringing it together. I love it.
Yes.
Now, we happened to run into each other at AASL, which I am so glad that we did, but we'd also kind of seen each other online a little bit before. And I want people to be able to find you online. So where do they want to go? If you want them to get their eyes on stuff, they need to get their eyes on your stuff. So where are they going to go?
Sure. So I'm on Instagram at @Cangro. That's my last name, CangroLib for library. And I'm on Blue Sky as @CangroLib. I did not deactivate my Twitter. I do not check it very often. So you could also find me on Twitter. If you see me on Facebook, I'll be very honest. My Facebook's pretty personal. I don't add people, but if you do see me post in those librarian Facebook groups, that is me. I didn't feel like making another whole account.
Yeah.
And you can email me. My email is K, as in my first initial, kkangro@gmail.com. If you want to collaborate, I love collaborating with anybody. So please reach out.
You
And if you
absolutely
have
should.
other ideas for True Book Fair, I would love to hear them, how I can make it better or how you've done it.
Yes.
My best ideas come from other librarians.
I agree. I also want to hear about your True Library ideas. I want to hear about all your ideas. But yes, my best ideas absolutely come from other librarians.
Yes.
So I'm with you in that boat, completely 100%. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing all this. I mean, it's so great to catch up with you. And I love that you're doing this for your students. And it is so wonderful. And that you are sharing it out so other people can do it too. Just so great, so giving, so generous. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve, for having me.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the SLLN podcast. Be sure to check out the show notes for the episode. They feature links to resources shared by our guest, as well as ways to keep in touch with them, and links to the book break titles. I'd love to hear from you. If you have feedback, a comment, an idea, a question, or something you want to share, you can email drtlovesbooks@gmail.com. That's drtlovesbooks@gmail.com. Know a librarian with something we could learn from? Let us know. Until next time, be good, be safe, and be well.